All right, boys, what we're doing here today is something called pace count. Who can tell me what a step is? What's a
step? When you move your foot.
One foot forward.
When you move your foot forward, can it be either foot?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's any time you take a step with one of your feet. So you take one step, and then you take another step, right? And what's a pace?
Pace is when you take 2 steps.
So you take 2 steps, but you only count one. So you would only, in order to keep from getting mixed up, you would only count stepping with your okay. So every time you right foot lands, you would count 1. And what does that do for you?
It gives you
a pace. It cuts the number in half that you have to keep track of in your head. If you had to count every single step for 100 yards, that's a lot of numbers to remember. But if you only have to count every time your right foot hits the ground, then that's half the numbers that you have to keep track of. So what you want to do from behind this chalk line that we've got is we're gonna walk 100 yards in that direction to another white chalk line that we laid out. And you're going to start with your left foot coming forward, and every time your right foot hits the ground, you're going to count 1. And every time your right foot hits the ground again, you count 2, and so on and down until you get to the 100 yards. And I want you to remember that number. When you're done with that, remember that number, and then we're going to walk from that line back to here. Now, why are we going to do it twice? And why is it we're going to do it the second time in the reverse direction? You need to get, right, you need to confirm your number, and it's not going to be exactly the same most of the time.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty close. So you get an average of what your pace is. And also notice the terrain going this way is going to be different than the terrain going this way. You're never going to find an exactly flat piece of ground out in nature, so this is slightly downhill, coming back is slightly uphill. It's nice to get an average of the two. Any questions? No? Okay, so start by walking left foot step, right foot pace. Good, all the way to the other chalk line. Okay guys, you walk down there once, and you got a number, and you walk back, and you got a number. Now how many of you got the exact same number both times? Okay, it happens once in a while. Most of you didn't get the same number though, right? Was it off by 1 or 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so Stephen, what number did you get going down?
67.
67. What number did you get coming back? 68. Okay, so you're taking a little more steps, a few more steps going uphill most of the time. So your average for that would probably be, 67 and a half, 68, something like that. So pick a number that's easy to divide. You might go ahead and go with the 68. So that's for what distance? How long? 100 what? Yards. Okay? So take your number and think to yourself, it's that number for 100 yards. How many paces do I have to walk to go 50 yards?
Half that.
Half that? So in your case it would be what? 34. Okay, good. So what would your pace be for 50 yards instead of 100? 25. Okay, great. So then, what would be your pace to go 25 yards? It would be half of what 50 is. So yours would be 15. Very good. Now, take your total number for 100 and tell me how long or how many paces it would take you to go 10 yards. So yours would be 68, so it would be like 6.8, right, or almost 9. So you divide it by 10 to get your 10 yards, right?
Well, does it go in evenly?
I know, but you can round it up a little bit. It's not going to be even when you start dividing this stuff out. It's not going to be perfect. But you can get close enough for what we're doing, right? So yours would be 6.8. You'd probably round it up to 9 for 10 yards.
Yeah.
Okay, now, have you all got that number for 10 yards in your head? Now, what would that number be for 5 yards?
3. 5.4.
3? Okay, good. Now, for 5 yards. Okay, somebody said 3 paces for their number. All right, and then what would be your pace count for 1 yard? So you take the number you had for 10 yards. In your case, it was 6.8 or 9, and then you divide that by 10, and it'd be 1 or maybe slightly less than 1 actually. So the whole purpose of this is if somebody says go 137 yards, How do you get there? Well, you can do your pace count for the 100 yards. Then you can do your pace count for 25 yards. Then you can do your pace count for 5 yards. And then you can do 2 of your pace counts for 1 yard each. And then you're at the end of 137 yards. And without having to do a whole bunch of math on paper, it's very easy just to remember what your pace count is for each one of those types of yardages. And then do the biggest amount of yardage first, 100 yards. You know your pace count for that is 68. Then your pace count for 5. Then your pace count for 2. And then you know you've gone that distance. Any questions on how to keep the pace count? Okay, very good. Thank you. Everybody pull their compasses out. We're about to do the next part of the exercise.